Hey Harmonizers, welcome to this video of King going to his second offsite obstacle park. So we're at the Happy Trails Obstacle Park. I'm going to show you guys a bunch of different obstacles than what we did with Newton. A couple of the same, but this is kind of the other side of the park. So there's this cool little log scramble, and before we filmed this video we did do about an hour of kind of practicing different things and riding separate from each other, and then now we're just kind of showing you a bunch of the obstacles all in a row. And when we first got there, King didn't want to cross the logs at first. He was kind of doing his frozen, I'm going to be stiff and not able to focus, and then it didn't take as long for him to settle before he finally went over the poles. I wasn't timing it, but it was probably less than 10 minutes before he started to relax a little bit more. And this is a little back through with the logs. You can go forward or you can go backwards through it. And that was one that he also was kind of looking at a little bit funny when we first got there, and I had to kind of wait for a few minutes for him to settle and go ahead. And this ladder, we also spent a fair bit of time working on this, and you can see he still isn't super fond of it, and I think it's just the lack of coordination. And I didn't really push the whole issue. I just asked him to try and give him a little bit of praise and move on. I don't have boots on him, and I know it's kind of awkward and kind of hitting his leg as he goes through there, so we just didn't focus too hard on that. Here is the bridge with the L shape, and you can see he kind of went off the side, so I just backed him up a little bit, and we're going to come around and do that one more time because he can do the bridge. That's one that he is more coordinated to do, the narrow bridge. It's a little bit hard for him to do the whole L shape, and I think we did do it once, but it is hard for him, so I was just focusing on doing one section of the bridge at a time. It's kind of tricky because it's a very narrow bridge to another narrow bridge, and that's just a little harder to target their feet. Kind of the cool tire step up with the sand hill, which is kind of neat as well, so he was doing really well with that and the coordination. This one here has a pond liner in it, and he just steps down really nicely. I believe they will be filling that one with water, but it's not filled just yet. And they have a really nice back through here, and I was working King on doing the back through when we were practicing. I practiced going through from all of the different directions that I could, and he was starting to do really well with that. He did bump his bum going into it, and he gets a little bit sticky, like it's not perfectly smooth, but he understands that he's supposed to go between it, and he's willing to do that. He does a pretty nice little back through there, so you can get a little feel for that. And we were working a little bit on some of the more technical obstacles. So if a horse is feeling overwhelmed, I tend to just stick with going forwards over things, forwards over the bridge, forwards over the log, whatever it is. And then as they start to have more focus, it's easier to do these harder obstacles that are a bit more technical, and they involve other buttons, so to speak. So this is a gate here that we're going to go through, and Natalie's filming while riding Newton, so the footage gets a little shaky sometimes, but also when we were doing our practice, we were definitely riding apart from each other. Sometimes Natalie would be on the other side of the park where we couldn't see each other at all, and it was just really nice that the boys didn't scream for each other, not even once, and did really well being apart and seeing each other, not seeing each other. That was really fantastic. Originally, I was thinking about coming to the horse show at this facility, and then I decided to book schooling instead, which I'm really glad about because they did take a little bit of time, or King took a little bit of time to kind of settle in and do his first obstacles. And then once he settled in, he was able to do things really well. But I think it was great that we had an opportunity to practice all the things that I think were good for him to work on. So for example, when we first got there, doing this side pass was a bit tricky for him and took him a minute, and now he just kind of goes right in. And this is a really cool obstacle because You can side pass the logs in the center like I'm doing here. You can side pass the logs on either of the sides. You can back between it. You can back in from any of the particular directions. So here I'm going to back in from this spot here where you see me, which he ends up kind of straddling the log, silly guy. And then you can either, you could push them over in the middle. You could turn around and back out any of the other sides. He ends up being a little bit of a goofball and kind of straddling the pole again. So I'll just kind of bring him forward and up into that box and ask him to just back out nice and straight and stay in between the logs that time. But it's nice to see that he's willing, that he's trying, and he's going through the obstacles, which is nice. There's so many different ones to try, which is awesome. There's also this really big teeter-totter, which is nice that it's really long, so they have lots of time to go up on it. And in the beginning, he was really rushing off of it, and you can still see he jumps down it a little bit, but we've got that a little bit better where he's slowing down as he comes off of it. So the teeter-totters, the things that move, definitely we could be working a little bit more on those things, but I didn't want to stress it. I just wanted it to be a little bit better than what it was. He was no longer really running off of it, and he was doing a lot better with that. They've got this really cool bridge up here. The only obstacle I didn't do was the one that's on the right, which is kind of goes down into this hut thing, but there's also water at the base of it, and it's very narrow and it's a little bit intimidating. And I'll show you guys in a little minute here King working through the water, and that took him long enough, so I didn't have time to go to that obstacle, and it's a pretty challenging one, so we'll save that for if we come back to this park again in the future. And doing this whole squeeze obstacle is pretty awesome, especially when you remember that King was the horse that was too scared to go in the racing gate. So it wasn't that he was too slow to race. They literally couldn't get him in the racing gate, and now he's going through all sorts of different obstacles and squeezes and things, and he's doing fantastic. Then I brought him out to the hayfield, and we did a little bit of canter work, and I tried a little bit of counter canter and some flying lead changes. And it was just so nice to have him. He's a real pleasure to ride, and the fact that I can ride away from, his friend and his other little buddy over there, and we can go cantering around and, push him on. And I'm trying to ask for a lead change there, which he does end up giving me the left lead, which is nice. And then we do a counter canter to the right as well. And the fact that he's just able to stay so sane, and when I rode him, I was able to stay on him the entire time. I never felt like I needed to dismount in order to do any groundwork or do any obstacles from the ground. So everything was done just from his back, which was fantastic. And as you guys know from following me with the dragon, it's definitely a nice change of pace to be able to have a horse that just feels a little bit more mellow, and I don't have to manage those emotions quite the same way. He definitely does get upset and gets worried and things like that, but he stays really kind of chill about it, and nothing too extreme. It kind of makes me wonder what the heck they did or did not do at the racing gate, because he tries really well for me for all of the different obstacles, and I find him a pretty willing horse for the most part. He's trying really hard and trying lots of different obstacles. So it'd be really cool, I think, if I could get out to a racetrack and just try getting him in a racing gate and just see if he would do that for me. I think that would be kind of an interesting thing to just try and see what our relationship's like. But then we got to the water obstacle. So after we played around with some canter, we went to the water obstacle. And the first time we went through the water, we don't have on camera because Natalie was working on another obstacle. And no joke, guys, I probably spent about 40 minutes being patient at the water before he finally went through the water. And we were kind of hitting this point of, okay, am I going to have to wait at the water for, another hour before you're going to go in? Or if I was going to use pressure, it was going to be an amount of pressure that I wasn't comfortable using. As you guys know from following me, I don't like to use a lot of pressure with horses. I don't like to push them to a place of feeling like they're scared. So I ended up having to back him in. So this is some footage of me backing him in because he he wasn't wanting to go into the water from this particular direction. And so this is not actually his first time going in the water. He's already been in a few times. And so what I'm doing is just keeping him pointing backwards to it. I'm just not allowing him to go forward. I'm not pulling back hard on the reins or anything like that. I'm just very softly asking for that cue. And for whatever reason, backing into the water is more successful for him than going forwards into the water when he gets really stuck. And that's something that I've seen some other people do before, and after waiting for a really long time for him to try and doing, you know, polite nudging and saying, oh, like, come on, like, give this a go, buddy, I resorted to backing him into the water as a strategy, but still very slow, and asking him to give that a try. And that worked for him. So then I turn him around, and we're in no rush to get out of there. The water is safe for the horses to drink, so he's having a little drink in there, and I think that's a nice little reward. In the future, I won't always let him have a drink in the water, but because this is his first time doing water with me, I just want the water to be a happy place. So we repeated that a few times, make sure that we could walk down forwards through the entrance to the water. And the really nice thing about this water is there's many different entrances. So there's 3 different ways that you can go into the water, and there's also 3 kind of slopes, like what you kind of saw me go in there. But then they also have in a spot where you can't really see off to the right hand side there's a little drop or like a step up. So it's a bit of a different way to go in and out of the water, which is kind of fun. So I think I go over it here. Yeah, he steps up out over top of a little log to get out. So I made sure that I took him in and out different directions through the water. So that's nice that even once he goes into the water, you get to practice different spots. And some of them are more narrow than others or a little bit more steep. So it makes it a little bit different. And then he started to really enjoy himself. And I got a little bit worried that he might try to lay down in the water. So I had to make sure I kept him moving and going forwards. But I just needed him to feel really relaxed there. So I was really thrilled because it gave him an opportunity to get comfortable in that water. And as we know, we'll see water when we get to Kentucky for the thoroughbred makeover. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching that, and let me know what you think.